welcoming Tarun Mathur, Chief Technology Officer at Indegene, for his keynote presentation entitled Innovation Labs, State-of-the-Art Demonstration on Agentic Content.
Missing the clicker. It would help if I find the clicker. It is more than one slide, sorry about that. There it is, okay, thank you. Right, thanks. All right, thank you for having me, and great discussion so far. This will be a little bit different compared to what we've heard in the morning so far. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Indegene. Events like this are a little bit unusual for me. I'm normally the guy in the hoodie in a dark room writing code all day long. So this is a good opportunity to put on the tie and the shirt. I want to talk a bit about what we've been seeing. Manisha mentioned practitioners in the room. So we're going to look at, from the technology side, a very specific observation and opportunity that we've been exploring, and I think that's very relevant to the audience here. And we'll talk about what the opportunity is, how we build it. I'm very grateful to Brian and Peter for kind of a positive view of IT and the opportunity we have there, and Jared and Wan Ho in the morning had actually also talked about the technology being kind of the foundational layer that's being commoditized, but how you use that tool, and the opportunity comes from there. And so here we're going to explore a very specific use case. So we want to look at how has the consumer pattern of content been changing. So if you look online search, when we publish websites and other types of online resources, the way people are searching, discovering, and consuming content is fundamentally shifting. There's been a significant increase in the amount of results that we're getting from AI-based tools. So certainly Google dominates the scene, and Google has become, of course, very much an AI-driven system, but we see results from ChatGPT, we've seen Gemini, we've seen Copilot, and this Perplexity, this growing number ecosystem of tools that are out there where folks are now looking for answers. They're not looking to go and explore someone's resource or online page. So we're more and more dependent on AI tools to discover and consume content. This traction has been significantly increasing. It's still a relatively small percentage compared to Google overall, but Google is actually part of this ecosystem as well. So we also seen the way we're discovering content is fundamentally changing. So search is becoming very conversational. So in the past, you may be used to doing a search in Google. Many of you had your own, maybe Google Kung Fu style. You know what keywords, all the little cool little symbols, the plus and the equals and the minuses that you can do in the Google search bar. That's changing, right? So now we actually see people putting in full questions right into the search bot. And you may be doing that within the Google search bar itself. You could be doing that within Perplexity, Copilot, any other systems that are out there. But very fundamentally, people are entering in their full context, the full question, rather than just doing keyword lookups. And data is showing us that the expectation over time is that this is increasing. So this report, which is from earlier this year, 50% is the projection. I actually think that number is low. I think more and more we're going to see the expectation being that we're going to engage with conversations, questions and answers, less about keyword and discovery. And you may have seen the recent announcements like Apple's new hardware that's come out and the new connected devices. Meta just had their conference a few days ago. I think the channels in which we're engaging with the content, the way we're going to be discovering and consuming it is fundamentally changing. That human-machine relationship is shifting. And conversation right now is a big piece of that, which is right where the Gen AI story kicks in. We also have seen data, and this also I think is a very conservative number, but 60% of Google queries, and I'm just discounting all the other search tools out there, but 60% of Google queries result in zero click. And so this is the important trend, and this was something that influenced our tech team quite a bit in our labs. When we started looking at this trend line towards zero click. Someone's coming and doing search and they're not clicking anything within there. What does that mean for us as a content producer? Do we have to act on this? Is there something that we have to shift in how we develop and produce content? And what do we mean by zero click? So I think all of us here have seen what happens now in Google. When you do a search, you get that little AI overview, probably called AIO, and this is where folks are getting their answers. So now I, as a content producer, if people are just getting their answer from the AI overview and they're not clicking on any links to go to my site, what does that mean? How do I know that my information and the imperative that I want to get across to the consumers of content is coming through in the AI overview? And the data here has also been pretty clear. We've seen almost 35% reduction in click-through rates. So many of us are used to measuring click-through rates as a key metric, but actually that's really becoming less and less relevant and important. And we also seen that this AI overview, how it gets generated, is also very interesting. The vast majority of the time that AI overview appears is when the information being researched or looked up is informational in nature. So for us, in our industry, this matters, right? And we've seen at least 63% of all healthcare queries show the AI overview in Google. And actually, I think here also this number is fairly conservative. It's from back in January, right? So it's really old data. But this is important for us because now I, as somebody who's responsible for effectively communicating with patients, with caregivers, with physicians, it's my job now to impact the way that we get our information into the AI overview or into the agents that are consuming the content. So that's the fundamental shift, that we're used to a world where a person goes online, they're looking for information, answers, they click a link, and it's the human that we're engaging with. In the new world, it's become very clear there's a proxy in between. The AI agents are doing the information lookup, they're synthesizing the response, and then giving it back to the human user. So we now have a responsibility to see how is my content adapted to fit for this new consumer, the AI agent versus the humans. So there is this need for us to optimize our content, and optimizing for generative engines. The data here also has been showing that when you actually do certain steps and certain techniques to look at our content and structure it in a way that facilitates that conversation with increased trust, with less opportunities for hallucination, confidence, you can boost the visibility into those AI overviews. You can boost your visibility into the agents that are consuming your content by at least 40%. And this number actually will be tracking up as the state of the art continues to improve. So what we need to do is first influence our presence within those AI overviews. And we'll look at some techniques and how we do that and some of the technology that drives it. And we need to influence how AI agents will actually be trusting and using our content in the responses. So we have two channels. One is on Google with that AI overview. So all the search engines that give you the response there, they have their own agents running behind the scenes. And then more and more, you're seeing people have their own personal assistants. So like the new iPhone that just came out has the A19 processor with a strong neural engine. Apple really didn't talk about it, but one of the reasons for having such a powerful neural processor on your device is that you can run pretty sophisticated models locally. And we think that over the near term, more and more of our connection to the outside world, you'll have these personal assistants. They know everything about you, right? They have access. If it's on your phone, it knows everything about you there, it has your emails, has your credit card history, your health data, all that. And they start to act on your behalf. So your personal assistants are reaching out either proactively or based upon your request to go discover content, synthesize responses, tailor it, and bring it back to you. And then you also have the online search tools, Google, Perplexity, et cetera, who are doing these queries. In both cases, you have AI agents, AI bots who are responsible for going and discovering, consuming, synthesizing, and giving you a response back. So we need to influence both of those tracks. So starting to put on the little engineer hat a little bit, from a technology perspective, there's the way that things are done today, and one of the reasons we need to make some sort of shift in the way that we develop and publish content. In the current model, I have an AI agent that will go reach out to some website, and it'll go pull down the content into the agent. It'll push that content into short-term memory of the agent, or conversational context that we call it. And then now I'm going to start engaging with get responses from that and having a conversation with using that context, which means that the answers that come back to me are synthesized by my local agent. It's not, so the AI overview isn't driving it. It isn't it isn't you as the content provider. You are running risks of unpredictable responses and lower trust. And we also saw that part of this optimization of content, for an AI system to trust you, there needs to be certain key hallmarks in place: citations, referenceability, confidence levels. So when an AI agent looks at your website, if it has to scrape your website, bring it into memory, and then start synthesizing responses off of that, the confidence factor and the level of trust that the AI agents has in that is far lower than if you controlled the conversation on your end. So there's been a number of efforts to bring standards into play to how to solve for this. And there is a modern stack that's recently been proposed, and there's been a couple of variations of it. Microsoft open source something called NL Web, natural language web, as a play into the space, but I think there'll be others that are going to be adding on to this stack. But I have my AI agent, and now it goes and converses with my own website or my source of truth. And that means that my website has to have an interface for agents to engage with it. It's not a matter of my agent going and scraping content and bringing it locally. Let that conversation be controlled by the content owner. And that's what the modern stack allows us, is that on our side, the content owner, content producer side, we have the ability to put in place certain interfaces that allow that conversation to happen. And there are a number of standards for this. We have MCP, Model Context Protocol. We have A2A, which is agent-agent, and then NL Web underneath there. So there are technologies in place that allow us as content developers, content producers, to control that conversation between the agents that are going and discovering and consuming and us as the sources of truth. And by doing that, now I can use the reasoning that from my end. I can use large language models, sophisticated models. I can put guardrails. I can put safety controls. I can put referencing, all those attributes that help to establish trust. I can put that in place. So we as technologists have a responsibility for looking at how do I develop content, how do I put in place the technology infrastructure in the stack in order to facilitate a world where AI agents are the discoverers and consumers of content in a very conversational storyline, moving away from the old paradigm where I'm just publishing static content and expecting the end user to consume it. We have to respect the fact that there's a different type of entity who is discovering and consuming my content. So what does this look like in practice? So there are tools. This is an example for one of our systems. But when a conversation starts, we send it that full text question, as we've seen people doing. And on our end, on the NL website, on the server, we end up having a conversation bot. The left-hand side here is what's happening behind the scenes. Our reasoning engines, our website, is taking in that question, it's applying its reasoning, its logic, the LLM is in place, our vector database and graph database, all those things are in place, and they're sending back a response to that question. But the right-hand side is what the AI agent gets back, which is a very concrete response with citations, and it's directly tied to my sources of truth. So I, as a content producer, I want to make sure there's no hallucinations. I want to make sure that if somebody asks a medical inquiry, a medical question, they're getting back the actual response directly tied to the source of truth. I don't have to worry about the end user trying to hallucinate off of that. So this is what the modern experience looks like. And this brings us to how do we do it, right? So finally, end of the day, when I put rubber on the road, we actually need to build these systems. So there's this concept of generative engine optimization, GEO. So we've heard of SEO, search engine optimization. GEO builds on top of that. That aside from techniques we may be familiar with in SEO, like keyword stuffing and other types of PageRank games that we can play, we have to bring in a couple of new attributes in order to optimize our content for generative engines. And there's a few parts that really make a big difference here. First, we understand that GEO is not SEO, right? So some of the old techniques won't solve the problem for generative engines. You have to establish credibility, and when AI agents start looking at content and are trying to determine whether it's credible or not, they look at the citations, they look at the links contained within there. So if your content, for example, links back to known credible sources, such as NIH websites, probably one of the most often referenced in web content, then that actually influences the perception of the modern agents who are consuming the content. And you need to be very fluent. It turns out that if you have content that's very keyword-based or things that are a little more visual appealing, but don't have proper grammar, syntax, complete sentences, it also diminishes the effectiveness of GEO. And we've seen this quite often, and data backs this up, that when you have content, the same content, but you've taken one step to make it very fluent and more complete, you get far better results. So there is a playbook for how we do this. We actually go and take a look at how LLMs work. And actually, let me just build out this content here. So first, we think about building our content in a format that's more Q&A style. So if I can take my content I'm trying to syndicate out there and put it in a question-answer data set or data format, that makes a big difference for how AI agents perform. And we'll talk a bit more about this. It actually has a larger implication. But at its heart, for those of you who maybe have spent time looking at language models, how you train them, how you fine-tune them, or run distillation techniques, it turns out the way you train a model, or fine-tune a model at least, is you build a question and answer data set. Usually you make a table that has 3 columns. You have a set of questions, you have a set of answers, and the third column you usually have something called reasoning, which explain how did you get that answer from the question. That's how we train models, large and small, across the board. So, and also if you do prompting, and I know a lot of us here have maybe done some, whether it's vibe coding or using some of these online tools for building little agents, when you put in your prompt, if below the prompt you put in some example questions and answers, or you put in those little samples, you'll get far better results, right? So this makes a difference. So if I can take the content I'm trying to syndicate or publish and put it in a format that's more Q&A style with high fluency, you'll get far better results from there. We've also seen that there are certain tags that we can bring into our system. So there have been some standards out there that screenshot on the right from schema.org, which is kind of the recommended model today, where if you start to bring in some of the tagging that schema.org has into your content, you'll also see far greater trust and accuracy and higher quality responses from agents who are consuming that content. And then lastly, publish this content using that modern stack. Take advantage of these standards like Model Context Protocol and NL Web. When a search happens, whether it's from Google or from your own personal assistants, they'll reach out online. If they discover your content, they'll first check to see, is there an NL Web or a machine MCP interface to consume, and those AI agents will use that first. If they don't have that, then they'll go scrape the content and try to formulate the response. But these 3 steps make a world of difference in terms of how my content becomes AI agent ready. And here's an example. So this is one of Indigene's web pages. So this is kind of your standard template visual layout. Now, if I wanted to go in and convert this, optimize this for a generative AI world, it would look a bit different. So we would actually come back and say, I'm going to replace those little keyword boxes with this little Q&A section. If we zoom in on that, so that box at the top with those 3 kind of highlights would be replaced by fluent, full phrases, question and answer. Now, this version of the website may only be visible to the AI agents. So we're not saying go rebuild your online content. We're saying that there's going to be an AI version of it. So when the website detects, hey, it's a bot that's coming, I'm going to give it this content, as compared to when a human eyes are looking at it, we'll give it this other version of it. That certainly is part of the architecture. But this is the goal here, is to start making our content fluent, structured in a more of a Q&A style, introduce some of those schema.org type of tagging on there with our mission towards getting the AI agents to trust us and use our content in a much more controlled manner. So what does it look like in the end? What does good look like for us? And as an engineer, what do I look for? What are the key metrics that we want to get when we start implementing these systems? So our goal is to get our statements, our content, our information within those AI summaries. So I'm not concerned anymore about traffic to my website. I'm more concerned to see that can I see my information, my content be present within those AI summaries. And there are metrics we can track, right? So you can actually track these conversations. We have the ability to even do the same type of fingerprinting that we're used to today. So when somebody uses an AI agent to go and interrogate or at least discover and consume my content, we can look at the amount of presence we have within these AI overviews. We can look at the citations, and I can actually go back and measure the amount of coverage that my information has for AI overviews. So there are technical ways for us to actually go and collect this data and leverage that data in a variety of techniques, which we'll talk about. And so those metrics, such as the amount of presence I have within those AI overviews, for example, that's information that ideally we can flow back into our CRM. So the same way we think about page views or what assets somebody has downloaded or what slide of a deck they viewed, we can now actually track conversations by individuals if we need to. And this can go into our CRM. So we think about omni-channel engagement, we think about personalization. I actually have another dimension now. These agentic-driven conversations can influence our next best action or insights in terms of how my information is being consumed and used by the audiences. So these are major parts of what looks good to us. And then, but lastly, I've talked about taking content, making it AI ready, but this is also doesn't mean that we have to go back and reinvent the wheel. It doesn't mean that also a major effort to go redo everything that we put in place. The state-of-the-art technologies that we have available today allow us to automate a lot of this work. And the reasoning models that we have within the AI ecosystem, especially some of the large language models, their ability to process content and information and understand domain is really quite sophisticated today. So we can actually automate a lot of this work here. So imagine I have an agent, something you've gone and set up prompts for. This agent has the ability to go and reach out to my source website. Like, it'll go look at some pages on my own website. It'll bring that information in from the website. And now if I have a domain expert, an agent that understands this is how patients, the kinds of questions and the intents that patients have. These are the kinds of intents that caregivers have, that HCPs have, regulators have. You understand that world. You can actually train and build what we call SME agents who understand that scope. And the agent that's going and building that Q&A data set for you can consult with this expert agent so that finally what you get out of it in the end is a meaningful data set. So what we want a Q&A data set out of our content, but we don't want a lot of noise in that Q&A. I don't want a lot of nonsensical questions or irrelevant questions. What I want is a question and answer data set that is comprehensive to the intents of my audiences, that this is the information that I know HCPs are going to have. This is the information I know patients are going to want to have. This is the information I know that caregivers and regulators want to have. And by having the right not only the tools, the LLMs in place, but contextualizing them so that they understand the scope of our domain, the therapy areas, the kind of product it is, the kinds of concerns that patients would have. You can actually now dynamically build out that data set, that Q&A data set, and that will then drive our agent-ready content. And so we can see what this looks like when we run this. What you see here is an example of our agents doing this on some sample content. The left-hand side is the reasoning that's happening. So this agent, we have these task agents, which I'll highlight here. These task agents are going and retrieving content, source content from some website, they're processing it, then these task agents say, okay, I'm tasked with building a fit-for-purpose Q&A data set for patients around this particular product. Let me consult with these expert agents for what are the real-world intents, what are the concerns, and what are the right types of questions to ask and build out that data set. By engaging in this automated multi-agent orchestration conversation, you will generate that Q&A data set that then can power your online content, boost your impact in the AI overviews, boost your impact on other types of agents consuming your content. And finally, the right-hand side is you see the results. You have a Q&A data set that's come out of there. And this is actually a pretty profound capability, and it's technology that only, I would say, in the past few months can we actually trust this at an enterprise level scale, where we actually say with confidence we can actually do this kind of advanced reasoning. And the implication of it is, for an engineer and a technologist, is pretty large, because I'm not only then talking about how do I optimize my online content for agentic consumption, but even beyond that, maybe you're familiar with the concept of small language models, SLMs, right? So how do you tune or train an SLM? It's exactly this. It's a Q&A data set. So if I have a repository of sources of truth, if I have my corporate documents, my SOPs, my guidelines, or I have other types of clinical literature, to be able to have expert agents curate and develop a really robust Q&A data set that can then go train a fit-for-purpose SLM, that has a lot of opportunities. That SLM can be deployed onto local devices. It's easier to run inference, and we think over the next couple of years, we'll see a proliferation of these types of small expert agents across the entire ecosystem. So the implications of this capability is large, but the whole point for this discussion today was really around us as content developers, content producers, we need to pay attention to the zero-click trend. It's significant, it's accelerating at an unprecedented rate, and it's not something that we need to ignore. We need to act on it. We have a responsibility to that. And bring in new KPIs. So when I'm measuring success, things such as the presence in the AI overviews matters. The coverage of AI readiness of my content matters. Some of the older metrics like CTRs maybe aren't as germane in the world going forward. Bring in those metrics into our CRM. So we think about omni-channel engagement. We want to enable other AI systems to do more effective communication. Those metrics can be tracked. They can be used. That's data. So we can actually use that for other models. And leverage GEO. So think about generative engine optimization, put in place a process, a system, a team, governance, but take it seriously, take a look at it beyond SEO. GEO is actually becoming more important than what we would traditionally look at in SEO. And then lastly, let's use those state-of-the-art models, ones that are domain trained, expert agents, so that the content that you finally do make available is relevant, is germane, is something that has value to the end consumers. It's not just a lot of noise within the system. Noise hurts everything, but when you use these state-of-the-art models with expert trained agents, you actually get far better outcomes. So that's it. That's my tech talk for this. Happy to answer questions. See a couple of hands raised.
Tarun, thank you so much. Very insightful presentation. I do have a question, but to provide some context and maybe the question. So my name's Shreyaj Valia. I work on Brian's team here at Bayer. And so what Brian was talking about is we're in these micro squads where we play a lot of hybrid roles. So although my official title is digital strategist, I end up playing a hybrid role with brand marketing. And obviously, as we all know, brand marketing makes a lot of content that we all consume. So my question is kind of with that lens, because I'm thinking from a brand marketing standpoint. You're saying, obviously, GEO is like the new up-and-coming tool we have to kind of adapt for. So my question is, AI makes a lot of content as well, right? So we, as brand marketers, we work with these agencies. They have large teams of copywriters, video creators, things like that. But then there's also tools that can just do that for you. You could go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write all the copy for this website. Then you can put that into like a video creator tool and then say, hey, make this into a video with an AI avatar. So I guess my question to you is like, as you're seeing it, do you see that human-created content or AI-created content is now being more preferred, or is there any, pros or cons either way? And where do you see that future going as well?
So I think more and more the distinction between them is disappearing. So, but what we do see, like, we use the Adobe tools, we use other platforms in order to create AI-generated content. What they aren't doing right now is thinking about the end user experience. They're building content, approaching it with the instructions you've provided it. But when they're building content for you, are they thinking about GEO? Are they thinking about creating these Q&A data sets for the agents who are consuming it and discovering it? Generally, the answer is no, unless you specifically guide it that way. But at the same time, not too long ago, certainly it was very obvious when you had AI-generated content versus something that's been curated, at least by human oversight. That distinction has been blurring, and I think that will continue to be minimized. I think it's almost like Kurzweil's singularity. I think we won't be able to tell the difference between them. But I do expect that us, and especially for pharma and healthcare, the imperative here, and the reason it's more important for us to think about these AI readiness of content, it's different than if I was doing in the entertainment space or some other area. We are concerned about facts, lack of hallucination, accuracy, and the lineage or traceability to the actual sources of truth. And if you can control that narrative, that lowers your risk. That, I don't expect that same problem to be at that scale in other areas. So that's why when you're working with these AI systems to generate content, then I have no problem with them. Actually, they work well. But you need to add that layer on top saying, I want you to frame the content you generate. Give me a version of this for NL Web, for example. Think about the Q&A data sets. Make sure it has citations to these trusted sources. Make sure I can trace every fact or claim back to the original source of truth. That's what our job in the brand marketing side of things. The tools themselves are becoming irrelevant.
Tarun, thank you for that chat, and that conversation. As a non-tech person, you really made it easy to understand. So thank you. It's very difficult to do that. I think my question is more philosophical for you. It's less to do with pharma. I understand what you're trying to achieve with pharma and the truth. I guess my point is that if you start controlling the sources of truth, and you're a malified player, you can do the same, right? So effectively, you can start creating content that is wrong and optimize it for the AI, and the AI will start picking it up. And so the question really is, from an engineering point of view, how do you prevent it? Can you prevent it? Are we just completely screwed in the next 10 years? And I guess the big question is, does the AI then have the ability to differentiate between what is true and what is true? As in, how do you start differentiating between that? I guess it's a philosophical question, so I'll leave it to you to answer.
It is a real world problem, and we have seen more than a few instances of adversarial attacks through that way. There have been these actors who went and polluted Wikipedia, for example, because they know every system crawls Wikipedia for facts, and if they go and corrupt that, then you'll see wrong information be rendered out. And it's an ongoing battle. I know that the companies who are developing our AI assistants, it's Perplexity, it's Google, it's Microsoft, all the other players out there, they have been continuously reworking their models to try to identify those kinds of poison attacks. So right now, for example, if you are publishing content and you follow these guidelines of building a Q&A data set, you'll at least get some more visibility. But if you start to reference your claims and your facts back to some known sources, so the NIH one I mentioned is because the data shows that a significant percentage of trust and confidence from these AI systems comes if they can go link your content back to a source from NIH. That changes it. So that's one tactic, but I think it's going to be an ongoing battle of the AI agents understanding who to trust. No different than a human. I know my daughter was looking at some website and we saw a video of at some robotics conference, and there was a person riding, basically looked like a robot horse going away, right? And it just looks unbelievably real. And she said, look, we've gotten to this level. After a lot of poking and prodding, you start to realize that was completely fake video, right? Then if you look at it a bunch of times, you notice that somebody's leg starts to disappear, and there was other little hallmarks in there. So the ability for us to go and identify fake or poison attacks, it's going to be an ongoing battle. And us as content producers, all we can do is really follow the best practices and do what we can to establish the trust factors. And right now, the number one way is by creating these kinds of fact databases so that I control the narrative on one side, and then referencing it back to known sources or known trusted sources. And then, but I think that will evolve. I think there'll be more and more texts that come up over the next couple of years.
For a wonderful talk, and to echo what our audience member said, that you have taken something very complex for non-technical people and made it easy to understand. So please join me in appreciating Tarun for his talk.
Thank you. Appreciate it.